The origin of all the Middle colonies can be traced back to a man named Henry Hudson, who in 1609 sailed up the great river that now bears his name. Like many other early explorers, Hudson was searching for a northwest passage, a northern trade route from Europe to Asia that avoided the long journey around the tip of South America. The Dutch employed Henry Hudson at the time, and his voyage gave Holland a claim to the region. 12 years after Hudson's voyage, a group of merchants from Holland created the Dutch West India Company to develop fur trading in North America. In 1624, 30 families of Dutch settlers came to America, and some of them established Fort Orange, the site of today's city of Albany, New York, and the colony of New Netherland began. New Netherland grew as more colonists arrived from Europe, and by the mid-1620s, for about $24 in trade goods, the Dutch purchased Manhattan Island. Now, Manhattan is where the center of the largest city in the United States stands. But before it became the city of New York, it was a Dutch town called New Amsterdam. It was the capital of New Netherland and the main port for shipping goods into and out of the Americas. The Dutch West India Company wanted to increase the permanent population of New Netherland, and so they came up with an unusual plan for colonization, known as the Patroon System. Under this plan, wealthy people who could afford to bring in 50 new colonists from Europe over a period of 4 years were granted huge tracts of land along the Hudson River. However, the patroons had to be repaid their expenses, so colonists who agreed to come were expected to work the lands almost like the serfs in medieval times. In the end, only 5 patroon ships were ever granted because very few people were willing to give up their personal freedom to live in Holland's American colony. By the 1630s, English Puritans had begun to settle in parts of New Netherland that are now the eastern part of Long Island, New York, and western Connecticut. The Puritans got along with their Dutch neighbors, but remained English subjects. At that time, including these English settlers, there were 8,000 inhabitants in New Netherland. Most were Dutch, but there were Germans, Swedes, and American Indians living there as well. In fact, it was such a diverse place that about 20 different languages were spoken there. Over time, Holland increasingly competed with England's shipping business between Europe and America. By the year 1664, King Charles II had grown tired of Dutch interference with his country's trade and decided to take military action against New Netherland. The king sent a fleet of warships to New Netherland with orders to seize the colony for England. But when the ships arrived, the Dutch governor, Peter Stuyvesant, was unable to convince his people to put up a fight, and so the colony was surrendered to England without bloodshed. Once he had taken New Netherland, the king decided to make a present of it to his brother James, the Duke of York, and it was he who renamed the colony New York. As the owner or proprietor of the new colony, the Duke could do as he pleased, and so he let the Dutch settlers keep their property and allowed freedom of religion, but he severely limited the colonists' ability to govern themselves. When King Charles died 20 years later, his brother, the Duke of York, became England's King James II. After that, New York automatically became a royal colony, and in the years that followed, New York City grew to be the second largest city in the English colonies. If he could have, King James II would have preferred to rule his kingdom from here in London by himself as an absolute monarch, without any limits on his power and without the help of Parliament. James kept a large private army to protect himself, and Parliament, which represented both the lords and common people, feared the king's troops might be used to force them from government. To prevent this from ever happening, a bloodless rebellion occurred in the years 1688 and 1689. As a result of what came to be called the Glorious Revolution, unpopular King James was forced to give up his throne. But an even more important outcome was that an English Bill of Rights was adopted. This set of laws gave Parliament more power than the monarch. And because it represented such a victory for democracy, the English Bill of Rights served as a major inspiration to the framers of the Constitution of the United States.